What is going on, Bills Mafia, and welcome back. As the Buffalo Bills get ready to enter the Joe Brady era and report to training camp in a few weeks, it feels like the right moment to do something we have been putting off since Sean McDermott was dismissed earlier this year. Sit down, take a breath, and truly appreciate what just happened in Buffalo over the last 9 seasons. Because before we look forward to what Brady is going to build, we owe it to ourselves to look back at what McDermott built. 9 seasons. Some of the best Bills football most of us have ever seen in our lifetimes. And a group of players who, while they never got us the one thing we wanted most, gave us moments we are going to be talking about for the rest of our lives. Today we are building the ALL-McDERMOTT era team, the very best player at every position under Sean McDermott's watch. Let's get into it. We start at quarterback, and there is absolutely nothing to debate here. Josh Allen is the pick, and it is not close. Josh Allen under Sean McDermott averaged 2 1/3 touchdowns per game, a number that is the highest in the history of the National Football League. The most prolific scoring quarterback per game in NFL history wore a Buffalo Bills uniform under Sean McDermott. That is a sentence that deserves to be repeated and appreciated. The honorable mention at quarterback is Tyrod Taylor, who deserves recognition because despite being benched in the middle of a playoff run, he was the quarterback who broke the drought and got the Bills to the postseason for the first time in 17 years. But this is Josh Allen's era, Josh Allen's position, and there is no world in which anyone else is even considered. What makes the Allen section of this retrospective so fascinating is remembering the process that got there. The Bills went into that 2018 draft with a 3-way battle between Allen, AJ McCarron, and Nathan Peterman. Peterman won the starting job in the last half of one game. The Josh Allen era began, and what followed was the most sustained period of quarterback excellence this organization has ever seen. McDermott deserves credit for developing Allen into what he became, for not panicking when the learning curve was steep, for building an offense around his unique skill set, and for allowing Allen to grow into one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks on the planet. That process happened under McDermott's watch, and it is worth acknowledging. Moving to running back, the choice is James Cook, and the numbers back it up emphatically. Cook rushed for over 4,150 yards under McDermott and is just 187 yards away from slotting in the top 5 all-time in franchise rushing history. A list that is topped by Thurman Thomas with nearly 12,000 yards, O.J. Simpson with just over 10,000, Fred Jackson, Josh Allen himself, and Joe Cribbs. Cook also has 32 rushing touchdowns as a Bill, which is 4th all-time in franchise history. He is the reigning NFL rushing champion. McDermott was tough on Cook early. There was the fumble on his very first NFL carry at SoFi Stadium that got him benched, and there were other moments where McDermott held him accountable in ways that probably frustrated everyone watching. But that accountability turned a talented back into a superstar, and James Cook is the clear pick. The honorable mention is Devin Singletary, who averaged over 1,000 scrimmage yards per season for 4 consecutive years as the starting back before Cook took over. And at fullback, Reggie Gilliam. 6 years as a Bill under McDermott, undrafted out of Toledo in 2020, became an elite lead blocker and special teamer, and parlayed that career into the highest-paid fullback contract in the NFL. Now, he is a Patriot, which we do not love, but his run in Buffalo was outstanding. At tight end, Dawson Knox is the answer, and it is not particularly close. 3rd-round pick in 2019, Knox has been the Bills' starter at tight end every year since he was drafted. He made the Pro Bowl in 2022. He is the franchise's all-time leader in receiving touchdowns among tight ends. He is 227 yards away from being the all-time leader in receiving yards at the position as well. And if you want to talk postseason, Knox is tied for second in Bills history with 6 playoff receiving touchdowns behind only the legendary Andre Reed. That is the company Dawson Knox is keeping. And he did all of that while being one of the more underrated blockers in the NFL at the tight end position, a physical presence in the run game that the Bills have counted on for years. The honorable mention is Dalton Kincaid, a first-round pick with massive upside who will have his best years ahead of him. At wide receiver, we have 3 spots to fill, and all 3 tell genuinely compelling stories. The first pick is Stefon Diggs, who delivered the most prolific 4-year receiving stretch in the history of this franchise. In those 4 seasons from 2020 through 2023, Diggs averaged 111 catches, 1,343 yards, and 9 1/3 touchdowns per season. He led the NFL in receiving in 2020. He is 4th all-time on the Bills in receptions, yards, and touchdowns, and he did it in just 4 seasons. The first 2 years were genuinely historic. The last 2 had more than their share of drama and controversy. But you cannot look at Diggs' production and impact under McDermott and put anyone else at the top of the wide receiver list. The second receiver is Gabe Davis, who gave us some of the most memorable individual moments of the entire McDermott era. He is 14th all-time in receiving yards, 9th all-time in receiving touchdowns, and tied for second in playoff receiving touchdowns in franchise history. But the stat sheet only tells part of the story. Remember that wild-card win over the Colts, the Bills' first playoff victory in a very long time, when Davis was making toe-tap catches along the sideline before halftime that changed the energy of the entire game? Remember that Pittsburgh game when Tywan Jones fumbled the opening kickoff to the 2-yard line, and then on one of the very first plays of the game, Josh Allen ripped a ball down the middle of the field, and Gabe Davis took it 98 yards for a touchdown? Jim Nantz's voice rising, "This is going to be 98 yards, Gabe Davis," is burned into the memory of every Bills fan alive. Davis also caught 4 touchdown passes against the Chiefs in one of the most heartbreaking playoff losses in recent memory. The numbers were real and the moments were legendary. The third receiver spot belongs to Khalil Shakir, who has become one of the best yards after catch weapons in the entire NFL. Shakir is 19th all-time in receptions, 25th in receiving yards, and remarkably, 5th all-time in Bills playoff receiving history, only 175 yards from being 2nd all-time behind Andre Reed. That last number puts everything in context. Shakir took 1.5 years to truly find his footing as a starter, but once he did, he became one of the most reliable receivers in the entire AFC. The honorable mentions here are John Brown and Cole Beasley. Brown as the best vertical threat the Bills had under McDermott, Beasley as the elite slot receiver who gave Josh Allen a chain mover he could count on during some of the best offensive stretches of the era. The offensive line is one of the more interesting position groups in this exercise because the stability was sometimes hard to find, but the best players at each spot tell a great story. At left tackle, Dion Dawkins is the most obvious pick on the entire roster. McDermott coached 148 games. Dawkins started 143 of them. 5 consecutive Pro Bowls. A first-round pick who became the foundational piece of the Bills' offensive line for an entire generation. McDermott and Dawkins grew up in this league together, and watching both of them let their personalities come out more and more over 9 seasons, Dawkins calling his coach McD, McDermott loosening up from the rigid exterior he came in with, is one of the best secondary storylines of the entire era. There is no honorable mention here. There was only ever one starting left tackle under Sean McDermott, and his name is Dion Dawkins. At left guard, David Edwards is the pick. 2 seasons as the primary starter and an outstanding 2025 season that earned him a significant contract with the Saints. At center, Mitch Morse for 5 seasons of quality starting work, with Connor McGovern as a strong honorable mention who will likely look even better in the rearview when his career concludes. At right guard, Osiris Torrance, 3 seasons as the starter, the rushing offense genuinely exploded when he arrived, and the only right guard under McDermott to hold the job for more than 1 season. And at right tackle, Spencer Brown, 5 of the 9 seasons under McDermott featured Brown as the starter, and the offense genuinely elevated when he stepped into that role as a rookie in Week 4 of 2021. He has grown into one of the better right tackles in the entire league since. When you write out that offensive line, Dawkins, Edwards, Morse, Torrance, Brown. That is a group that was assembled through a mix of draft hits and smart free agent moves, and it was the foundation for some truly elite offensive football in Western New York. Now to the defense, which under McDermott produced some of the best units in the modern NFL. At defensive end, Greg Rousseau is the first pick, 5 seasons as a starter, 52 tackles for loss, 32 sacks, 7 forced fumbles, 17 pass breakups. He is just 6.5 sacks from being in the top 10 in franchise history. Not a pure sack artist, but an outstanding complete defensive end who is still growing at 25 years old. The second defensive end is Jerry Hughes, the holdover from the previous regime who signed an extension and became one of the faces of those early McDermott defenses from 2017 through 2021. Some of the best defensive seasons in the McDermott era featured Jerry Hughes as a starter. At defensive tackle, the picks are Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones. Oliver is 6th all-time in sacks among Bills defensive tackles and climbing fast. 6 sacks this season would push him to 3rd, behind only Kyle Williams and Tom Sestak. He never quite delivered the absolutely dominant consistency that a top 10 pick was supposed to provide, but there were stretches, particularly heading into 2024 and 2025 before the injuries, where he was playing at a genuinely elite level. Jones is the pros' pro nose tackle who made everyone around him better and kept the run defense from getting gashed for 4 seasons. Jordan Phillips is your honorable mention. At linebacker, Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds are the picks, and both deserve enormous appreciation. Milano is simply one of the best linebackers the Bills have ever produced, a 5th-round pick from 2017 who at his peak was as good as any linebacker in the NFL. A genuine tight end eraser whose coverage ability changed how offenses had to game plan against Buffalo. The injuries robbed him of too many seasons, and it is genuinely sad to think about what his career numbers could have been if he had stayed healthy. But when Milano was healthy and right, he was an A-list linebacker. Edmonds is his running mate, 5 seasons as the starting Mike linebacker, 2 Pro Bowls, and the Bills finished 2nd, 3rd, 14th, 1st, and 6th in total defense in the seasons he started. He is a player whose reputation was sometimes unfairly maligned in Buffalo, but who will look better and better in retrospect. At slot corner, there is only one choice, and his name is Taron Johnson. 8 seasons under Sean McDermott, a revolutionary slot defender at a time when the position was being fundamentally redefined across the league. Johnson was essentially an every-snap nickel player at a time when the Bills were in nickel defense on almost every down, tasked with covering tight ends, running backs, and slot receivers while also being a genuine presence against the run. The pick 6 against the Ravens. The interception against Mahomes to seal that regular season win. The Colts playoff game. Moments that live in Bills Mafia history forever, and they all belong to Taron Johnson. At cornerback, Tre'Davious White and Christian Benford are the picks. White should have been the Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2017, and everyone knows it. He led the NFL in interceptions in 2019, was a top 5 corner in the NFL for a stretch before injuries took their toll, and is 3rd all-time in franchise history in pass breakups. Benford is arguably the best player development story of the entire McDermott era. A sixth-round pick who stiff-armed a first-round pick in his rookie season for the starting job, became the team's #1 corner, and has been every bit a top 5 to 8 corner in the NFL for the past 3 seasons. He shut down Nico Collins. He shut down Jamar Chase. He is one of the best value contracts in the entire league. Tre'Davious White is a legend, and Christian Benford is the present and the future. Both belong on this team. At safety, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde were arguably the greatest safety duo in the NFL for a 3 to 5 year stretch in the middle of the McDermott era. Both came in as free agent afterthoughts. Both became genuine stars. Both were culture setters and foundational pieces of everything McDermott built on the defensive side of the ball. There is no honorable mention here. Those two are the choices, and it is not close. Special teams, Tyler Bass at kicker, who is 13 points away from being third all-time in Bills franchise scoring history and was the most consistent kicker this team had for the bulk of the McDermott era. Sam Martin at punter. Andre Roberts at kick returner, the most trustworthy return man the Bills had under McDermott, handling both kick and punt return with the kind of reliability that coaches cherish. And at long snapper, Reed Ferguson, who appeared in every single game Sean McDermott coached as the Bills head coach. 148 consecutive games. The model of consistency at a position that nobody appreciates until something goes wrong. That is the all-McDermott era team. 9 seasons. A franchise rebuilt from the ground up. The drought ending. Playoff appearances becoming routine. Some of the most exciting Bills football any of us have ever watched. And yes, the Super Bowl that never came. That absence is real, and it is painful, and it is the one thing that keeps this era from being everything it could have been. But let's not let that absence erase what was real. What was real was exceptional, and the players on this list are the reason why. The Joe Brady era starts now. Hopefully, in more than 9 years from today, we are doing a similar exercise for his tenure, and hopefully there are some Lombardi trophies making that list a lot more fun to build. But before we turn the page, Bills Mafia, let's appreciate what Sean McDermott and these players gave us. It was a lot, and it was good. Hit that like button and drop a comment below with your all-McDermott era team picks. Who do you agree with? Who do you have differently? And who did we leave out? I want to see every take in the comments. Subscribe so you do not miss a single update as we head toward training camp and the beginning of something new in Buffalo. Go Bills!